Hi, and welcome to Contracts Over Coffee, the podcast where we talk about all things contracting while sipping a delicious coffee beverage. I'm your host, Ann Baker, Senior Director of Partner Marketing for Icertis, and with me on the program today is our terrific guest, Ali Mansuri, Partner Customer Success Manager at our partner, Whatfix. For those of you who aren't familiar with Whatfix, their product helps to provide employees with a personalized user onboarding experience to help drive digital adoption of enterprise applications. They're great partners of Icertis, and we're thrilled to have you on the program today, Ali. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've been waiting for my opportunity to come on Coffee with Our Contracts, and I definitely look forward to this podcast with you.
Great, thank you. Well, now we like to start out these podcasts with the same question for all our guests. Ali, what is your story?
Well, thank you so much. So, to give everyone some brief, right? And hello, all. My name is Ali, and I work for Whatfix as a partner success manager. I look after all the customers coming in through our partner channels for the US geography. Our core tenet here is to help our clients with the digital adoption challenges and achieve the value and ROI using our digital adoption solution called Whatfix. Um, uh, about us a little bit more, we are a strategic partner with Icertis, and we've done close to more than 15 plus implementations where our product is bundled with Icertis' CLM. On the other note, Whatfix works basically, just to give everyone an overview, works as an overlay or an added skin on top of your application. And since I joined Whatfix back last year, 2019 in April, my very first account were Icertis customers who had purchased DAP. And in a year's time, I was so well equipped that I understand and developed interest in learning more of CLM and understanding the contract lifecycle management. So that I developed an interest in this niche. And here we are. I'm doing a podcast with you.
That's right. Well, we're happy to have you, and let's dig into talking about contracts now. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge with contracting today?
Well, that's a great question, right? In my 1.5 year stint, I've interacted with close to 15 iCertis clients, and I've done
Mhm.
a fair bit of research from my side, right? And this is my personal take. I think the biggest challenge to me when it comes in the contracting space is the traditional methods on which, there's still a huge population which is still out there on the traditional methods of contracting. Um, as we progress towards the future, I definitely feel there's a strong need to have a robust infrastructure and platform which not only serves as a repository of your contracts, but also streamlines the entire life cycle management, the various touch points that are involved in a life cycle. I also know that the biggest other challenges, if I have to go ahead and rate them, I think it would be mainly the risks involved, for not opting for a good contracting process. With more and more compliance risk, as we know, we are getting more and more scrutinized. There's more and more regulations coming out there, unidentified risk, unfulfilled obligations. To add some more is, the lack of communications between stakeholders, right? Traceability is extremely, extremely important, is what I feel. And lastly, this is my very personal take, is I wouldn't like to redline something, print it out, and mailing a contract to another third party and send it back with revisions. It's just a very inefficient process.
Hmm. Yeah, there's so much inefficiencies with contracting, and I know that Icertis was one of the first companies, more than a decade ago, of really grasping this transformative idea that if you could unite the processes across organization wide, across contracting, there was real potential there for improving business processes. So it still remains a huge challenge today, but we're happy that we count several hundred customers on our platform working with us to help improve that.
I
So,
mean, just
with that challenge in place, the next question is, where do you think contracting is going? Where is it headed?
this is one of the the best question, right? Where is it going? So I'm an avid follower of new industry trends. I like to follow probably the fintech space, the health tech space, the CLM space, and what really caught my eye is how huge there is a potential in the CLM space. Uh, I would like to start off as we get into a more digitalized economy, right? Everything's being done through online platforms. And as we also get highly regulated, right? There's high compliance, there's high scrutiny, there's more and more regulations coming out, right from GDPR to HIPPA. I feel CLM and contracting have a long way to go. There'll be definitely a key differentiator for enterprises to not only bring in more efficiencies and reducing risks and costs associated, but most importantly, change the people mindset where people kind of say, hey, you know what? It's in the contracting phase. This is going to take some time, right? I mean, contracting was always been the team which was always termed as the bad guys, where we don't really know. It's with legal. It's going to take some time, right? And that is something which is game changing with the introduction of such a robust infrastructure where everything is so well level set. And I feel CLM is if I look at it from a macroeconomic perspective, right? It's always said that CLM, a lot of people, when it comes to contracting, they think it's more of an administrative task. But I feel it has a macroeconomic view on an economy, and even from enterprises' growth perspective, it I think one of the key points which I'd like to make here is that it plays a significant role in reducing the time to value of a particular service or an obligation that needs to be performed, right? Eventually, if your contracting process, if you're doing it manually, it's probably taking 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get probably a signature out there, an external signature, right? With automating this entire process, it's not even facilitating ease of transaction, but earlier time to value, right? And one of the examples or anecdotes that I'd like to share is I was speaking to one of my clients, and they told me that earlier they needed like a week to just get wet ink in terms of their contract. And with the CLM coming in place, they actually said that it was, with the digital signatures coming into the picture, it's been automated in just a few minutes. So I see huge potential. I'm going to throw out some numbers as well, right? That I think from a numbers perspective, I've actually seen that if you look at a company who is basically spending close to $1 billion in annual purchases, right, or procuring, they have 1 billion in annual contract purchases. And this is something which was quite interesting, which I read on the Aberdeen Group white paper. I read about that 200 million is spent off contracts, right? Like 800 million is on contracts and 200 million is off contract. And considering that enterprises report a 16% discount advantage for on-contract purchases, right? Which basically means moving just a quarter of purchase back onto the contract could have just returned $8 million in savings, right?
Wow.
And on the flip side, company with, let's just say, purchases has a purchase procurement total of around $500 million, right, a year, out of which, let's say, they use 400 million under contracts, and the remaining 100 million is not on contracts. They kind of lose $18 million every year due to lack of proper supplier contract management. So if you look at it from a macroeconomic perspective, you're basically 80% of the world is on contracts when it comes to having any kind of obligations to be delivered, be it cash or be it any revenue, any cost, any assets, liabilities. There's a lot of things involved in it. And I feel with this entire bottleneck that is being taken care of by CLM, I see that it's even bringing more liquidity and getting more revenue to the end customers and enterprises.
I mean, I love that. I love that point. And I loved your kind of story there about, when you get to contracting, people are like, oh, this is going to take time. And I mean, I think our vision is to really eliminate that statement from ever being made again. And we had a previous podcast guest who talked about, the revenue that's lost when you don't automate and manage your contracts in a centralized location. And then it's really interesting, how you've kind of made the connection there about just contracts not being done properly and losing, revenues potentially by not having them in the right processes and standards and templates. And there's also the whole aspect of just losing contracts completely, which if they're not in a, overarching managed system happens quite a bit. And so huge ROI benefits from putting contract lifecycle management tools in place, which I think is what we've been seeing, particularly this year as everyone is moving to more and more remote working. The need to be able to organize and manage and automate all your contract workflows directly from one single source of truth. So
Oh, absolutely. I'm completely
mhm.
on board with you over there. I mean, for companies like Icertis and even Whatfix, for a matter of fact, right? I think with the current situation that we are on, I think there's been a huge global shift. That's what I really feel
Yeah.
towards the online side, and I think the response is tremendous.
Yeah, yeah. So, along those lines, we've talked a little about challenges, where contracting is going. What do you think people would be surprised to know about contracting?
Well, surprised to know is for me when I was brought in new to Icertis, and trust me, all of this knowledge has come in the past 1.5 year. Being
Mhm.
being introduced to Icertis, and I'm really privileged and happy that I got Icertis as a partner because there's so much to learn from. A few
Mhm.
of the things which really surprised me is again, I was in the notion. And maybe for the viewers who are watching this, right? There's more to it, right? It's just not an administrative role. Contracting, we generally think that it's more of an admin task where you probably need to get the paperwork done and probably get everything in place. But if you kind of take a deep dive, right? If you look at a business operates on a network of contracts, right? From their revenue to their expenses to their assets, liabilities, right? So there's
Mhm.
so much to it. An efficient, robust contract management platform not only improves your financial well-being and the performance as well, but it also takes away the lags and lengthy, procedures which end up being bottlenecks to get the ball rolling, to get something, to get your desired outcome as soon as possible, right? And I think right now, 80% of the business, as I said, transactions in the entire world are governed by contractual agreements, right?
Mhm.
And that was a surprise. And out of those 80%, how many of them are actually on a robust platform is something that I'm still trying to do my research. But in a nutshell, what's really surprising is that for a company with a 1 billion, annual purchase agreement, spends around, close to loses about $8 million, right? Probably those numbers are just too staggering, right?
Mhm.
You have a direct P&L impact on if you talk about dollar values and ROI savings, it's a huge saving, and we're basically talking about transactions which can even exceed 1 billion as well in terms of purchases.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of procurement folks, probably the annual spend is greater than in billions as well. So it's definitely
Mhm.
a great thing to know. And I just had one more point that I wanted to add, right?
Mhm.
That, and this is something again that I learned eventually, that a 5 cent pricing error in a single customer contract for 2 million units,
Mhm.
of a particular product could
Mhm.
result in $100,000 in loss if unchecked, right?
Yeah.
So a fat finger out there where you're not on a platform, right,
Mhm.
which is going and having the right set of controls, the right set of architecture out there, the right kind of compliance, etc. If unchecked, a similar error across multiple customers could just have $1 million impact right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing when you think about it, but probably happens more often than we even realize. One little nickel off here and there on a massive contract can really, really have huge implications. And I tend to agree with you. I know when I started at Icertis and it's in contract management, you think, oh, that's legal, that's lawyers, but just the far reaching impact it has across an organization, all aspects, procurement, sales, finance. It's just been kind of amazing to me. So there's so many great contracting resources and tips out there. What is one contracting tip that you wish every person knew?
one tip that I really want everyone to know over here is that I read one of the white papers again. I can probably quote you the source as well. I think it was on the Aberdeen Group, or I think it was a different source. But it basically told me that if you look at one industry, which is the healthcare industry, right? The
Mm-hmm.
healthcare or the health tech is gaining momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
The healthcare contract management software market, or probably you can probably say the market capitalization is projected to reach around $1,763 million by 2024. If you look at a CAGR, it's about 18.5% growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the population currently that we have, and more awareness when it comes to well-being and better health, right? There is so much of importance where contracting plays a picture. The
Mm-hmm.
increasing need to reduce health costs while adhering to the regulators' requirements,
Yeah.
and the safety and security, and along with the confidentiality clauses which have been rolled out. This is a game-changing factor, and I think everyone should know that contracts are everywhere in your life. It's just that we just don't pay enough attention. But when we probably use a magnifying glass, if you look at any companies, everything is based on contracting, right? And there's so much I could see with the and contracting is not a it's not a vertical, it's a horizontal. It can cater to any industry, and it's needed by 80% of your businesses, and there's so much ROI that we can get out of it. It's truly staggering when we eventually deep dive into the actual nitty-gritties of how this this infrastructure of this entire product um, is such a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is amazing how I mean, every industry is governed by contracts, and healthcare in particular these days, payer, provider, and particularly pharmaceutical companies right now are, in the midst of doing all sorts of contracts, and with these new clinical lab trials around the COVID-19 pandemic and what's happening there to try to accelerate timelines for a vaccine.
Absolutely.
Contracting is, really at the heart of a lot of those trials, and just collaborations across different organizations that are working together like they have never done before to try to speed a cure. So, yeah, and there's a number of the analyst groups like Aberdeen that you mentioned that provide a lot of really interesting materials on that space, as on contracting in general, but verticalized as well if people want to go deeper there.
Absolutely. And just one small point that I wanted to
Mhm.
add, right? So I've dealt with I've dealt with a different customers, right? I've from an Icertis perspective, I've dealt with automotive groups. I've dealt
Mhm.
with pharmacy, pharma companies.
Mhm.
I've also dealt with equipment dealers, equipment suppliers, etc. And what I see is when I speak to them, my job is to make sure that they get the most value out of their product, right? And I kind of understand, and this is all through the consulting approach and trying to understand what are your exact pain points. Where have you started your journey from? And when they tell me that, hey, Ali, it was something like I take a template, right? I take a printout, I put in the details over there, I put a fax again, or probably send that printout back, and then it gets a wet ink and it comes back to me. And then it's all automated in just 5 minutes. And I'm like, wow, is
Mhm.
this is this really the amount of time and efficiency
Yeah.
gain that you've got? It's just phenomenal. And then on top of that, we come into the picture as Whatfix, and then we tell them that, hey, what are we? We just basically a navigational app, right? Think
Mhm.
of it like if someone's looking at Whatfix for the very first time, I kind of give them, I don't just go inside the technicalities of what we do. I tell them
Mhm.
that imagine you're on a road, right? You don't have a mobile phone, you don't have a cell phone, and you need to go from point A to point B, right?
Yep.
All you have is just maps, and how are you going to go there, right? You don't know how much time it's going to take you. You don't know. You probably have to use a map, follow directions, ask multiple people, and then when Whatfix comes in, and then when if you have a mobile phone with GPS, it's
Mhm.
easier to just navigate to the place, know how long you're going to reach, how much time it's going to take you. That's exactly what Whatfix does. Helps
Mhm.
you navigate through the application with the most less amount of time. So it's like you've already automated and created so much efficiency. We are also doing that exactly for the same by making life even more easier with a digital adoption platform. So your users who are coming in from traditional methods find it extremely seamless with the right kind of hand-holding on Icertis so that
Mhm.
they build in more adoption and they get the support that they're looking for once they come into Icertis. That's what
Yeah.
Whatfix is all about.
Yeah, we like to say we have an unwavering commitment to our customers and their experience with our product, and that really is true, and it's very much grounded in our values of Forte that we talk about: fairness, openness, respect, teamwork, and execution. And I've noticed, in joining Icertis, just the focus we put on our customers and making sure that their experience with the product is one that's really positive. And Whatfix has, been a key partner in doing that. And I like your analogy of being lost a little on the road and needing a map. And if you're going down a road and you do get lost, just having that person there, or that product there to tell you, here's where you need to go next, and here's the information and the help that you need in the moment, in the context that it's required, is really critical. And that's why Certus has made an investment there, and wants to make sure that our customers can adopt and use our products and always feel like they have what they need to really make the most out of the features and functionality that we've built into the platform. So it's great having partners like you that help us improve that experience for our customers.
Mutual is absolutely same. I mean, it's
Hmm.
exactly. I echo the exact same thing, and we definitely look forward to having more wow moments with our clients.
Yeah, I agree. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We've talked about contracting. Now I want to talk a little bit about you, Ali. So, what do you think people would be surprised to know about you?
Okay, so this one's gonna be completely. So I'll tell you a few things about me. So I came into this industry of SaaS, right? SaaS was
Mhm.
very new to me. I didn't know what SaaS was until probably um, March last year, right? My background is completely different. I come in from an investment banking background, so I'm more of a finance guy. And then again, this was just my curiosity to know what's going out there. And eventually, I started reading about what is software as a service. How's the world economy changing? How's the SaaS, baking, getting basically it is a groundbreaking reality for me that okay, there's something that exists like this. And then my interest went in so deep, and I started. And the other thing is one more interesting thing about me is. Um, I graduated just next to the Icertis building in Pune, right? So my college was just like less than 500 meters from where Icertis office is in Pune during at the headquarter. And whenever I used to pass by, I used to kind of look on top and I'm like, okay, there's a company here called Icertis. Okay.
Mhm.
At that time, I didn't know much. Then eventually, when I joined Whatfix and when I got to know more about Icertis, I stumbled across this video from Monish Darda, who's the CTO
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
Icertis,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have just one video. There are multiple videos where he's on the panel and he's talking about it. Talking about the vision, how Icertis came in the picture, and there was one anecdote which I remember where he basically speaks about no one have ever imagined, right, that there is a problem here. He identified a problem and he goes on speaking about it, and he gives some statistics in terms of what are the current problems and what was the solution that we came up with. And I think from that, when I started following, a few videos from Monesh, understanding what's the vision of the company, and when I read that it's, I may be a little wrong over here, but more than 800,000 or 8 million contracts processed
Mhm.
through multiple languages. I
Mhm.
think that itself in it is a testimony, and there was a congratulations shout out as well that came out from our side when Icertis hit the Unicorn Club. So
Yeah.
definitely, I'm very fascinated. I hold the same roots as Pune. That's my hometown too. But yeah, and I come in from a complete different industry, and what kept me going was definitely the curiosity to learn and the way these companies have identified a problem and built such a great solution, which is so much value driven. So yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. It's yes, when you were looking up at that Icertis building, you didn't know that you'd be doing a podcast with Icertis just a few
Probably go
short
back
years
in
later.
time.
That's yeah. And Monish, he was our co-founder and CTO. I mean, just a wealth of knowledge and always looking ahead at what's next, which has just been very, inspiring across the board to kind of watch and learn from. And speaking of inspiration, what inspires you, Ali? Mhm.
Well, I've been a huge fan of from an inspiration perspective of Warren Buffett. I do, since as I told you, right, I do have a background of finance, so I do take a lot of inspiration from his conversations in terms of how to be a valued investor. At the end of the day, whatever you're doing, you're investing your time, you're investing your efforts, and then you're basically investing, whatever you're making as well. So I think he inspires me a lot. I've read a couple of books of him in terms of how to plan out a lot of things that you want to achieve. And I think apart from Warren Buffett, I also look from an innovation perspective. It's definitely going to be, I would say, Mm, Steve Jobs. Yeah, I think though I don't own an iPhone though, but I definitely have read through his autobiography in terms of how he came up with his other brand called Pixel. Got back into Apple, and I think it's a great inspiration story. But from a local leadership, I definitely look up at each and every founder. I'm a huge person who likes to follow your stories and other communications from the destined CEO. So be it Icertis, I've definitely read much about Monish as well. From Whatfix perspective, our founders, Khadim and Wara, how the Whatfix journey has been. I definitely you can call me an avid reader or probably a bibliophile when it comes to reading success stories and how they made it possible. Uh, and I definitely try to see if what I could emulate in my day-to-day life to try to showcase some more value in terms of the activities that I'm doing, and have a long form vision as well in terms of why am I doing something and what is the impact it's going to be in a few years from now. So yes,
Yeah.
that's what me.
Yeah, those founder and leader journeys are always so interesting to kind of read the history of how they got there and the different challenges and things that they had to overcome. And I tend to agree with you. You can learn a lot from kind of reading the history of some of those founders and their journeys. Well, I wanted to thank you, Ali. I think that wraps up our episode for today. It was a pleasure to talk with you. For our listeners, we encourage you to go visit the Whatfix website to learn more about their different digital adoption technologies. And we will also put a link to one of our recent webinar recordings on the blog post associated with this podcast. So if people want to learn more about Whatfix and Icertis and how we partnered together, you'll be able to get that at the end of the blog. So thank you again, Ali, for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Anne, and thank you so much. And I hopefully will come back here again with some more data.
Yeah, great. It was great conversation. Thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.